Greetings, 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 greetings. Good evening. What's going on? What's going on? Wagwan. This is your brother Chief Kalanaga Flying Eagle, man. Listen, I'm here in London. Just right now, it's about what time is it? I think it's about 11:45, and I'm still up. I'm still energetic. I've been up for so long. My uncle took me out today and he took me into a different part of London. Well, another one of my, another uncle of mine. My grandmother had nine children, so another one of my uncles took me out, into another part of London, like I said, and I saw, Soho, Chinatown, and it's amazing. No matter where you go in the world, there's always a Chinatown, right? But I can't be mad at that. They say, never hate the player, right? But you gotta learn the game. And trust me, these Asians, they have learned the game. They have learned the game. What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What up, Coach Gang? What's going on, brother Corey? What's going on, my Nietzsche? What's going on, my lineage? What's up? All right, so, but just hearing all these stories, from my elders, it's amazing. Like I said, you have to travel to hear the different stories. I mean, what's up, my Nietzsche, Brian Little? You have to travel to hear these stories because a lot of times, we in the Americas, particularly the United States, and I'm saying particularly the United States because within the United States is where you have the melting pot. It is not so much as rampant as it is in the islands. In the islands, you still have the majority of the people are indigenous. I mean, people of what we call color, people of hue. But as you could see, they have created a melting pot in the United States. So, we tend to, or we have experienced a certain level of what's called racism. Now, this video is pretty much asking the same question. Did people of hue experience racism in London? And who would have known, right? Unless we ask those questions, unless we experience those things. And so I'm here to share some of that information with you, coming from my uncles, coming from my, my genealogy here, that's in London. So with that being said, my one of my uncles, told me a story, and he told me when he was about, I think he was about 5 or 6 years old. He and my nana, which is my grandmother, they were actually walking, and they were a group of, pale people, colorless people. And please, once again, like I tell people, this has nothing to do with racism. But I'm just here to bring information and knowledge because if we cannot comprehend each other, then we'll never get along. What I mean, we'll never see eye to eye. We'll never be able to talk about each other's experiences. You see, I know the story of the pale man. I know the story of the pale race. I know the story of the colorless people. So I see things from a whole complete different perspective. I see things from an eagle eye perspective. I see things from a God perspective because I'm a God. You know what I mean? And I'm not just a God, I'm an enlightened God. So I see it from a complete different viewpoint. And so, with that being said, all this is for educational purposes. All right. And once you are able to, relate to nature and see things in nature, then you'll have an understanding and overstanding as to what humanity is like. All right. Now, if you realize what I said, I'm gonna say it again: humanity and humanity. Okay, it's two different two different spectrums. All right, but for those of you that's been listening to my videos and what I teach and the facts that I bring, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But with that being said, let's go back to the story. So he said that he and my nana, and I think it was another one of my uncles, they were walking. If it was just the both of them, and it was back in the 70s, in the early 70s, I think the late 60s or the early 70s. All right. And they were walking, and a group of colorless people were throwing things at them or in their direction, and they were saying, go back where you came from, nigga. Go back where you came from, nigga. And that was happening in London. And at the same time, it was simultaneously happening in the United States. Now, why am I sharing this? Why is all this important? All this is important because, my brothers and sisters, I want you to know this was strategically done. Okay, it was strategically done. It wasn't something that was just happening in the United States. Okay, it was done strategically around the world. Okay, because remember, people think that we are living in a so-called new world order, new world government. No, it has always been a one world government. Okay, it is just a little more prominent right now, and it's a little more, people are they're a little more aware because of social media and all the knowledge that's out there. But it has always been one group of people controlling everything, so it has always been a one world government. Okay, it just wasn't called that. The point I'm making is the experiences were the same. You see what I'm saying? The experiences were the same. All right. So again, why is all this important? And I'll tell you why. Okay. I'm here in London and I'm seeing things for myself. Okay. I'm seeing things for myself, like I did in the video yesterday. I'm walking and I'm seeing the same thing that's in Brooklyn. I'm seeing the same thing here. Now, of course, the buildings, they look a little bit different because they have the styles of building here in London that's different from what we have in Brooklyn. But at the same time, even if it's brownstones or whatever the case is, they still are built a little bit different. All right, but it is the same, like literally. Okay, we, like I said, where we went earlier today, it literally looked like 42nd Street in terms of the multicultural diversity of people. All right. The only difference was that in my mind, to see that it was different was the buildings. The buildings were different. But if I were to take the buildings in 42nd Street and place them where I was today, okay, or even when I went to Soho, which is Chinatown, if I were to take that Chinatown and put it in Manhattan and take the buildings in Manhattan and put it here, my brothers and sisters, you would have swore I was in Manhattan. It is the same setup. Now, once again, ask me, is that a coincidence? No, it's not. It is not a coincidence. So I'm saying all that to say is, around the world, especially in these so-called countries of power, okay, people of hue were being dealt a certain level of racism, or an extreme level of racism, whichever way you want to measure it. The bottom line is we were going through the same experience at the same time. Now, how is that possible? How is that possible? How is that possible? And then at the same time, like I told y'all in the video yesterday, one of my other uncles told me, listen, he said, nephew, you know, well, no, it wasn't it was my aunt. You know, we never called up people that didn't call themselves black until the Black Panther movement. So I'm saying all that to say again, and I'm reiterating and I'm stressing the fact, not an opinion, that we are the foundation. Okay, the foundation of what's taking place in the world. Okay, literally, the world was built on our backs. All right, and I'm not just talking about so-called people of hue in all different parts of the world. I'm talking about the people of the Americas. I'm talking about from South America to the newly found Central America to North America. Okay, we built the world. Okay, we gave the world civilization. It was on our backs. The pale people, okay, the colorless people were able to build, because remember, people don't truly comprehend why. Why do you think? Of course, in this new day and age, you have more intermingling, of interracial relationships when it comes to pale people and people of color. You are seeing that more, and you will continue to see that more because it's supposed to happen. And of course, I've already broken that down, so I'm not going to get into the reason why in this video. But my reason for saying this is, okay, pale people you ask yourself, well, why? What was the main reason behind pale people hating people of color? And a lot of people don't realize why. Although I've already explained to you in videos why, but I've never necessarily mentioned the specific one, well, at least one of the specific reasons, and I'm going to mention it here. Let me tell you why. Pale people have a fear of colored people. They're not afraid of you because they think they're going to mug, you're going to mug them. No, they're not afraid of that. That is what's being promoted. Okay, that's propaganda. Okay, because even here in London, my uncle told me, I mean, my uncle works at a university. My uncle, literally, give presentations, for the government and huge universities and mentor people. All right. And yet still, when my uncle walked the street or he walked next to a car, you have pale people locking their doors. Okay. If a man is walking with his wife or his girlfriend, he would lit and she's on the same side that my uncle is on. All right. He would move his wife to the other side. If they're on an elevator, okay, they would hold their purse tight. You see what I'm saying? And the man is teaching in universities. You feel me? So let me tell you something. Okay, let me explain something to you. He says, yes, my uncles were born here. They were born here. Yeah, my uncles and my aunts, they were born in London. Okay. So, and like I said, of course, well, my grandmother, is from Dominica, but she came here, at a very young age, and I think she had probably one or two of her children was born in Dominica. My mother was one of them, and then another one, but I think the other seven, or at least three, was born in Dominica, and the other six in the UK. But either way, the ones I'm talking about, they were born here. All right. So like I was saying, before I lost my train of thought, let me go back to that. So yeah, he was telling me about the experience. Okay. And let me tell you why pale people have a fear of people of color. It is not because they think you're going to mug them. They're not, trust me, pale people aren't afraid of you. I promise you that. They are not afraid. Okay. That's not what they're afraid of. Pale people, and I'm not saying all this to give pale people a pass. That's not what this is about. But you see, when you know the truth and you know things from a God perspective, in other words, without any bias, because you know the truth and you know the history of both sides, then you tend to see it from a perspective of not being emotional. Okay, because my uncle taught me something today. He said, nephew, do you know what IQ is? I said, yes, because IQ deals with a mental, sort of like intelligence. Okay. And then he asked me if I know what EQ means. All right. I say, well, EQ, when I hear EQ, I'm thinking of, equalizer or something that deals with music, because if you're DJ, you adjust the EQ and all that. He said, yes, but in respect or in relevance or in contrast rather to IQ, you have EQ, which is emotional intelligence. And he said that he did a test, okay, in the university that he teaches at, and they did a test and they realized that most people get a little bit braggadocious in terms of their IQ. But what the university found out was the people with the EQ, okay, they rated higher because they had emotional intelligence. You see what I'm saying? Because the IQ deals with academics and the emotional intelligence deals with decisions that affect your life. So therefore, emotional IQ is it ranked higher than the IQ. It's than IQ. So EQ ranked higher. So for me, so he said, nephew, he said, listen, man, you have a high IQ, but you know what I notice about you? Your EQ is I mean, impeccable. And he wasn't just telling me that because we spoke for hours and hours and hours. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying all that to say is I don't look at a lot of things from an emotional perspective. And let me tell you why pale people are afraid of people of color. It is not because, like I said, they're afraid you're going to mug them. It is not because they're afraid that you, as a man of color, going to sleep with their daughter, or you as a woman of color going to sleep with their son. No, they're not afraid of that. Trust me, they're not afraid of you because of what they have been through. However, the fear that they have is a historical fear, because why? They came from underneath the rule of uh, I'm going to use the word so-called black nobility of Europe. You see, we were lied to. Okay, we were lied to, and they will not say, but the truth is going to come out. Like I said, it's going to come out. They would want you to think that the kings and queens of Europe were people, pale people. No, they were not. These pale people came from underneath the rule of people of color, and the majority of them were ill-treated. They were subjects, and a lot of them were slaves and concubines of the nobility of people of color. So that is what they have in the back of their mind. Trust me, there's a reason why there's no such thing as a White History Month. Because if you dig too far, in fact, you don't even have to dig too far, you're going to learn the truth. And that is the fear that pale people have. They don't, trust me, they're not afraid of you mugging their bag. No, they'll call the police. Okay, no, they ain't worried about that. That is the fear that if we take our feet off these people's necks, what's going to happen is, yes, we want to treat them as equals. Yes, they want to be treated as equals, but we don't want to take that chance, because if we take that chance, they are a people that's always ascending beyond limits. So what might happen is we will go back underneath their rule, and that's what they are afraid of. They have a fear of that. That's what they're afraid of. So now the media was put in place to promote a propaganda that people of color are dangerous. Oh, they sell drugs, they're killers. No, that's not the fear they have. No, trust me. They own the police, they own the courts. Okay? They're not afraid of you, but they are afraid of you collectively. They're not afraid of you individually. They are afraid of you collectively, and the power. They are afraid of the power that you may have and what you may do with the power. That's what they're afraid of. Okay? So that's the real fear that pale people have towards people of color. Okay? So anytime you step into a prominent position and you're rising in some type of authority, trust me, there will be a plan to take you out. Because if they let that one individual slide, guess what? Another will slide, another will slide, another will slide. But because we don't have the discussion, and we don't get to talk about each other's past, because they are hiding their past. Their past is a big secret, but yet still, our past is a mystery. So we have to know the mystery, and we have to know his story, and have an open conversation. And once we have done that, they'll realize by nature we are not that type of people, especially here in the Americas. What you experience in Europe, it had nothing to do with us. Okay? But however, in order to stay as a ruling class, so to speak, all right, they had to put everybody in one box. In other words, Peter paid for Paul. So what these so-called black people did to them in Europe, these black nobles did to them in Europe, okay, when they came into the Americas was their savior. Okay, these people didn't know how to wash themselves, bathe themselves, brush their teeth. They didn't know, they used to eat each other. That's facts. That's facts. They always fought each other. Now, don't get me wrong. So-called black people did that in Europe too. They were fighting each other. Okay, because the ruling class is like, let me explain it to you. It's like President Obama, a man of color, being the president of the United States. But within the United States, there are a lot of different ethnic groups. The same thing happened in Europe. It was happening in Europe all through from the 700s all the way up until the late 1800s, early 1900s. The nobilities in Europe were people of color. Okay, they were people of color, and pale people had to go through that nightmare of being ruled by people, especially they know that those people were the people they came from, and they enslaved them. Hence, you have the word Slav. Okay, those were one of the first people that were enslaved. the Slavs. So that is the real fear that they have. Okay. And that's why there is no such thing as white history. That's why his story had to be created. Okay. To flip the script and make you think that all so called black people came from Africa as slaves, which is a complete lie. Which is a complete lie. Now, they couldn't have done it by themselves. They did it with the help of this is the transition. The dark skinned nobles and who people that had any type of power, good jobs, what they would do is they would take the pale women as concubines, okay, and they had enslaved the fathers. So when these women, these kings, these people of nobility, when their children became, those children also, even if they were mixed children, they were also children of nobility because of their fathers. So they started asking questions. Well, hold up. I'm seeing one side of my family and everybody is of color. Where are the other? Where the rest at? And they learned the truth that their fathers were enslaved and they were barred off in mountains, in caves. Okay. And these children did not like that. So now the mothers, okay, started raising their children to be rebellious against their so-called black fathers. Hence, you have the example of King Ferdinand and Isabella. They were mulatto children and they were fighting their so-called black parents. And then the mulatto children started having children with more of a pure Aryan race. And that's how, the crown started to become lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. It was a transition. And they vowed to themselves, yo, we would never go back in that position again. And we're going to have to do what we have to do to make sure we never go back in that position again. Okay? I mean, Europe went through so many changes in terms of plagues, in terms of, farming. You see, you have to learn the history and the story of Europe. So it's the only way for the Americas to make sense. It is the only way for the Americas to make sense. So when they were talking about all the slavery and all these supposed slaves coming from Africa, guess what? Europe was broke. King James died as a broke man, a man of color. Queen Elizabeth died. Queen Elizabeth I died and she was broke, a woman of color. So how could they afforded this whole, elaborate slave movement? But it was impossible. And look at today. We have more sophisticated boats, and we have more sophisticated, what you call it, engines. And even up to this present day, the trip from Africa to the Americas is still a challenge. So can you imagine the type of boats they had before? So all that stuff is a lie. It's a lie. And that's the illusion that we live in, because nobody wants to come to the table and speak the truth. Okay, let us talk about everybody's story and see where it's at. So therefore, that's why pale people are afraid of people of color. Okay, it has nothing to do, well, they're afraid you might mock them. No, man, they don't give a damn about that. No. No. Trust me. There's a secret code, a secret language, a secret story that you don't know about. And that's what it was. They were the subjects of people of color. So what happened was their parents had to protect them. So their parents created a narrative for them, okay, to protect them. I'm keep telling y'all, the allegory in the Bible, it's an allegory, but it speaks truth. They had to put a mark. They had to give them a mark so that they would be protected, and they had to be given the birthright of all indigenous people. They had to give it to their children because of what they did to their children. That was their atonement. That was their atonement, okay, to their children. Y'all think this is a game. It's not a game, man. It is not a game. All right. Now, like I said, you have to be able to study a lot of the culture and the history of Europe and know what took place in the Americas in order to put the puzzle together for it to make sense. Because you have to ask yourself, well, and many people have asked me this before, well, Chief, well, if we were on top, and that's why they find it so hard to fathom that we were the ones that were literally the American Aborigines and we ruled everything. It's hard for them to even fathom that because they're asking themselves, well, if that was the case, then how is that within such a short period of time, 500 years, the pale man came and just took over? No, the pale man did not take over. It was given to the pale man. You see, people don't comprehend that. The pale man wasn't the one fighting the wars with the American Indians. No, our ancestors. No, it was people of color. The pale man really truly got involved in World War One. That was his fight. Okay, that was his fight. Even the American Revolutionary War, it was pretty much the majority of these people were people of color fighting, the so-called black nobility in London and in Britain. It wasn't the pale man. Yes, you had a few of them, but the majority of them, over 80% to 76 to 86, 85% of them were people of color. And I've already proven it to you with the Virginia colonial record and the New York colonial record. I showed you where they were from, their profession, and their complexion. These people of color did not come from Africa. It was a lie. Okay? It was a lie. And ultimately, the decision was, listen, we are not going to let the so-called black nobles rule because the original 13th Amendment said that there was supposed to be no title of nobility in the United States. In other words, you so-called black nobility, we can't have that. That was the deal until they ratified the 13th Amendment and gave us a new one. All right? So that was the deal. No title of nobility. Period. All right? So therefore, the so-called black nobility could not rule. Then, guess what? The Iroquois Confederacy could not rule. So it was like, listen, instead of us going to war, we are going to give it to the pale man, hence the United States. He did not fight for this. It was given to him. Okay? And I'm giving y'all facts. Okay? So let's go back to the subject at hand. The concept of racism for people of color out here in London was the same as it were in the United States. Okay? Even up to this present day, it's happening. And it's not even as subtle as it is back in the US. No, I know it's a little more subtle in the US. Okay, because we have more of a melting pot. Out here, it still happens. Even if people try to fake it, I could see it with the fake smiles. I mean, trust me, man, it's real. It's real. And people here are going through the same situation, the same impoverished neighborhoods. Okay, the same situation. My uncle told me a situation where people bought their house in the 60s and the 70s for 30,000 pounds. Okay, and they were forced or in a way approached to buy their, to sell their homes for a few $100,000. Today, these homes are worth over 2-point-something million. All right, and those places are gentrified. So let me ask you a question. Why is it happening not just in the US, but why is it happening here as well? Because why? It was systematic. Okay, it was a plan that was devised. All right, it was a blueprint that was put together. Just like the book, it was a blueprint that was put together, and by any means necessary, it had to become a prophecy because it was all allegory. It's only when you have an open mind you get to see these truths, man, or else you will continue to live in the illusion. You will continue to live in the illusion. Many people of color here in London who don't like Africans, and I'm saying all this with all due respect. Like I tell people, I have nothing against Africans, but even a lot of them here know that they did not come from Africa. And why is that? You feel me? And and the truth of the matter is, I hate to take it back, not say hate, but I dislike always having to take it back to Africa. The reason why I'm doing that is because that is the lie that we were told. That is the lie that we were told. And even today, again, even if I heard it yesterday, nephew, we did not call ourselves black. Everybody was called colored. I heard it today again. I heard it yesterday, okay? And then I heard it today again from a different uncle, but I think I heard it from my aunt yesterday, if I wasn't mistaken. But the bottom line is, I heard it from two different people yesterday, and they didn't even know I had the conversation with each other. And the point is, they were not called black at all. Everybody was called colored. And then all of a sudden, there was a movement where they start talking about, well, people of color don't want to be called colored no more. They want to be called black. Does it sound familiar, my brothers and sisters? Okay. Does it sound familiar? Hmm? Okay. Man, listen, y'all, like I tell people, man, this game is real. This game is real. The foundation, yes, to answer your question, brother Brian Little, all of those questions, yes, all that stuff was built by people of hue. Okay. They were built by people of hue. I'm telling you, yes, the pale people, they experienced, don't get me wrong, they experienced this slavery. They also experienced slavery. They experienced, racism as well. They did. All right. They did as well. But it was more so from, I would say, um from a perspective of, even with when the pale women were taken as concubines and taken into slavery from the barbaric slave trade, they were more expensive than anybody else because they were considered a prize. All right, not that I'm saying that a prize slave is less. It's all immoral. Okay, but the atonement was, since we did that to our children, we have to make sure that they are protected. All right, they are protected. And that's why they were given the crown. Okay, that's why they were given the crown in Europe, all over Europe. They were given the crown. It was handed over to them. Okay, so it was handed over to them. And like I said, it was up to Queen Victoria, I think, was probably the full-blooded Aryan. But before her, it was, you had a few mix queens and kings, but the further back you go, the darker, the more hue they had. Okay, the more hue they had. And that's why you started seeing all these so-called pale kings and queens that you have today, because that is what a life is about. Remember, when you see things from a God perspective, you have to realize that they have to be balanced in life. And that was the balance. Okay, that was the balance. In other words, to every action, there's a reaction. That was the reaction because an action took place. Of you feel me? And that's what happened. But it happened before 1492. It happened before those times. Why? Because a Gregorian calendar was created. It took away 28,000 years of this experience, this transition, preparing themselves for what I call not how would I put it, degradation, or not evolution but devolution. Because why? People of color had to devolve. They had to devolve. They had to devolve. They had to devolve until you got to the bottom of the arc, and then hand over everything to the humans. All right, and let the humans rule for how many thousands of years. And now we are back at the top of the arc. All right, where it's time for the humans, people of color, to be back in control. But we have to do it the right way. Doing it this way this time is not about ruling people. Okay, it's about creating the balance. Because if we just tip the scale, guess what? It's going to go back to the same thing, where we go back into a position of revenge, a position of being hateful, and a position of animosity. And yes, we will rule because it's our turn. Okay. But if we don't realize the spiritual aspect of all of this, and we rule with a certain iron fist, then guess what? That's the action. There has to be a reaction. We are going to go right back where we started. You rule, we abuse you. Now it's your turn to rule, you abuse us. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I said you have to see this from a God perspective. And once you comprehend these truths and there's an open conversation, then you'll see things start to change. This is not about revenge, okay? Because we did what we did to humans, okay? And now it had to be handed over to the humans so that we could experience what happened to the humans. So we did. So now everybody's even. We have to start with a clean slate. Now, a lot of you may not get this, and some of you will, but trust your brother know what he's talking about. Okay? Your brother know what he's talking about. So both sides, the pale people have to know the truth and speak the truth because they know it. And people of color, and people of hue have to acknowledge and know what happened. They have to be taught. They have to be taught it. Okay? Because both sides will lie too. The only difference is the pale people, they have the advantage because they know both sides. Our people were only taught one side. Oh, you came from Africa. That's all they were taught. That's all they were taught. Okay? That's all they were taught. So I just want to kind of do this video, man. You know what I mean? And yeah. And this is about, yes, brother Little. This is the rule has to be about the righteous on all sides, not just one side. Because if you do it on one side, here you are tipping the scale again. You see what I'm saying? But it's not a rule where we are going to allow people to rule our lives. No, it has to be inclusive where we have to be the ones making decisions that's going to affect our lives, but coming to the table to make sure it does not infringe on other people as well. You see what I'm saying? But it's about the righteous, and the righteous has nothing to do with skin color. We went through that phase. We went through that experience already. We have, we have gone through that, and it's no longer about that. You feel me? And anybody who continues to make it about that, you haven't gotten and you have not learned the lesson. And trust me, to every action, there's a reaction. You will pay for that. You will pay for that. You cannot call yourself a God and see it from only one perspective. You can't do that. No, you can't do that. The universe will not allow you to do that. The scales have been tipped one way and they were tipped the other way. Now it's time for equilibrium. All right? Now it's time for equilibrium. And that's what Noah meant. Noah meant rest, equilibrium. So a new Noah is going to be created, meaning that a new man, a new race of people, and that race is the righteous race. And that's what we are working towards. You may not see it, but trust me, it's happening. And whether you like it or not, the universe is going to make it happen. So whether, like I said, the universe don't give a damn about what you think. Okay? The universe is going to make it happen. Period. Okay? Because the universe cannot tell the difference between left and right. The universe cannot tell the difference between up and down. The universe cannot tell the difference between good and evil. The universe is just going to give what you put out there, but it is set up in a way where there has to be equilibrium. And now it's time for equilibrium. And anybody who try to fight against that, they will destroy themselves. It's going to happen automatically. Okay? And this is facts. All right? This is facts. Now let me see if I could I wonder if I'm able to share this with y'all because I'm doing this on my phone. Let me see if I could do this. If it's broadcast info, layout, post comment. No, okay. So I don't think I'm able to share anything on my phone. Okay, yeah, I can because I'm doing it on the phone. Wow. Anyway, I was gonna share something with y'all, but I guess I'll do that another time. All right. And I'm gonna leave y'all with this quote, something that my uncle shared with me earlier, and someone shared with him that changed his life. Okay. And I'll give you the story behind that because it will make it a little more relevant, right? He said when he was younger, you know, he had a disability, and that disability was with his eyesight, so he had to wear like a thick pair of lenses or glasses, right? And he wasn't the only one, but there was a group of them a few of them in that class that was, kind of like dealing with the same, handicap, if I may, but it was more so with the eye. It wasn't, nothing with their arms or their legs or their speech. They were brilliant children, but they had that situation. But anyway, um, he was very, very astute, very bright in physics. Okay. And he hung out with a group of people and he wanted to be cool like everybody else. So the physics professor called him to the side and said, we would like to, speak to you, your parent, whatever the case is, and we would like you to take an extra hour after school every day for not every day, but 4 days a week, just to take some physics classes because I mean you have great potential and we want you to advance, so we'll it's going to be free, we'll so they'll teach him extra hour every day for 4 days, well, for 4 days out of the week. All right. So my grandmother, the parents, they agreed to that, whatever the case is. However, because of the friends that he was hanging with, all right, they thought that they wanted to be little gangsters, so they thought that being astute, doing schoolwork was for punks, what I mean. So they would call him names because he was one of the the bright students, but he did not tell them that he was taking extra hours on the physics because he didn't want to be teased, right? So one afternoon they were all hanging out, in after school, but that day he was supposed to go for his extra hour. So as soon as he was about to leave his friends, okay, the physics professor passed by, and the professor asked him, "Hey, of course he called his name. He said, what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be in class?" So he's looking at his friends now. He don't know what to say because he don't want his friends to know that he's taking extra classes because he's supposed to be a bad boy, a thug like everybody else. And in their mind, thugs don't care about school, and you know what I'm saying? Whatever the case is. So his friends called him to the side. He was like, "Yo, what is he talking about, mate?" So he didn't want to tell them. So he was like, "Yo, tell him to to piss off, whatever the case is." You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever the case is. So anyway, to impress his friends, this is what he did. He told his professor, "Yo, piss off." You know what I mean? What you talking to me for, right? And then they left. The next day, he came to class. He came and he was scared. He was afraid now because he just literally cursed out, the professor. So he came to class, and after class, the professor asked him to wait. So he waited. He thought he was going to be expelled from school, whatever the case is, right? So the professor told him, "Listen, I'm not mad at you. I know exactly. I know exactly why you did what you did. You wanted to impress your friends. You wanted to fit in. So I'm not mad at you, okay? But I'm gonna ask you a question. It's a rhetorical question, but it's also a statement." And this is what his professor said to him so many years ago. He asked him, "Why spend your life trying to fit in when you were born to stand out?" And when I heard that, it took me back and it took me in so many places because that was so profound. And I'm going to repeat to you again what this professor told my uncle. He asked him, but it was a statement and a question. You see what I'm saying? He said, "Why spend your life trying to fit in when you were born to stand out?" And that's a question I'm asking my brothers and sisters this evening. Why are we spending our lives trying to fit into a system when we were born to stand out of the system? And from that day, my uncle went to school and told his friends, listen, I don't care what y'all say. I'm taking physics after school every hour. And everybody got a problem with that, then we're going to have to deal with it. And this is the position that my uncle is in today. He's teaching at universities, going in different parts of the world, mentoring people. I'm talking about banking institutions, even in governments. You see what I'm saying? So that is what I'm living with y'all today. Why are we spending our lives trying to fit into a system when we were born to stand out? It is time for us to stand out, stand up, and stand out and make an impact. No longer we should spend our lives trying to fit in the corporation of the United States, that plantation that was created to enslave us in our own lands. It is time to stand out and let our voices be heard. And that's my message for you this evening. I appreciate love y'all, man. And that's why I do what I do. Because the world is waiting for us American Aborigines to stand out and stop fitting in. Because we're fitting in, everybody else is fitting in. Because we don't realize the impact. We don't realize that we are the leaders. We don't realize that we are the foundation. Because nobody taught us that. We were taught that we came from the bottom. We came from the bottom of slave ships because that was support, that was intentional. Because that was the path of devolution that we were supposed to go through. That was our karma that we had to go through. You feel me? Through that period of forgetfulness, we had to go through that. We had to go through the experience of the land of Nod, and that's what Nod means. Land Nod means wanderer, forgetfulness, a land of exile. That's what the land of Nod meant. It's all allegory. That's why when the allegorical Cain got banished from the Garden of Eden, he went into the land of Nod and found a wife. There were already people there. Now, I'm not saying it was in the Americas. I'm just giving you the analogy because it represents not just where it was at, but it's an overall analogy for the story of both people of hue, the humans and the humans and the humans. Okay, but it was only the story of the humans that was exaggerated, meaning that was told in extent. So just know this: the world is waiting on us, and we have to stand out and let's stop fitting in. All right. So with that being said, I'm wishing y'all an amazing continuation. Continue to rise in love. Continue to rise in power. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Do not abuse this power because we'll go back exactly where we came from. Because I'll tell you this, to every action, there is a reaction. Just keep that in mind. So once again, once you comprehend what I'm talking about, know that you are a God, but you have to move like a God, not a jealous God, not a God that's that's unrighteous. No, not a God that's on that shows favoritism. No, we have to rise as a righteous God as righteous gods to create equilibrium. Okay? If we don't, we'll just start this cycle all over again. And everybody's going to suffer. Everybody. But everybody's going to take a turn. All right? But because we are supposed to be stepping in a realm of equilibrium, the universe is not even going to play games with people. Talk about, well, it's your turn now. Everybody's going to pay the price. Everybody. So let me take that back. Everybody's going to pay the price because it's time for equilibrium, balance. And that's what it's about. That is the lesson that had to be learned. Okay? Coming from perfection, coming into generation, devolving into degeneration, and experience ourselves in our lowest selves. And once we hit the bottom of the arc, now it has to ascend back into the perfect man. And that perfect man has to be in balance. So therefore, right now we are experiencing Noah. And what Noah means rest. Noah means equilibrium, the new man. And therefore, by experiencing Noah, then we could go ahead and manifest Ham, Shem, and Japheth. It is all allegory. And repopulate the earth with righteous people. That's it. It is really that simple. The allegory is so simple when you know the truth. All right. I'm going to talk to y'all later. Peace. Yeah, I love you too, my brother. You already know, Brother Little. You already know that. All right. One.